I was about to go down with it.
Alright, Ria, Claire, I want you two to flow and listen on Meg for when if Zingy's saying the same things you guys came up with, what other things she could be saying, etc.
Okay. So, after I'm just going to go over framework and hit my 3 contentions. I'll wait. Okay. So, judge ready? Opponent? I was about to say partner. I'm like, okay. So, time starts now as the first speaker affirmative. I strongly affirm today's resolution. The USFG should pass a constitutional amendment to abolish the Electoral College. So we're gonna criterion is gonna be net benefits. Actor is going to be the Supreme Court, and basically the plan text of this is what's gonna happen. So the Supreme Court is going to pass an amendment to the Constitution, which is going to basically abolish the Electoral College. Funding not necessary. They just have to rule. And so just some background information about the Electoral College. It's made up of 503 electors who will cast a vote for a ballot for who they want to be president based on what the population has spoken. So going on to my first contention, we're going to tagline this, note equal dispersion. So uniqueness of currently under the Electoral College, each state gets a minimum of 3 votes. So the problem of this is that the value of each citizen's vote. So let me start that over. Under uniqueness, currently each state gets a minimum of 3 electoral votes. So the problem of this is that the value of each citizen's vote is different from someone living in a different state. So, for example, this is according to the Huffington Post. Wyoming counts nearly 4 times as much in the Electoral College than Texas. This is because Wyoming has 3 electoral votes for a population of 532,668, and Texas has 32 electoral votes for a population of almost 25 million. But when you actually do the dividing the population by electoral votes, Wyoming has 1 elector for every 177,000 people, whereas Texas has 1 elector for 715,000 people. This is bad because what we're seeing is that people in certain states do not have the same voice as people in other states, depending on the population of their own state. So what we see is this is bad. Therefore, no, everyone doesn't have equal representation, and what this could lead to, yes.
How many electors are there for Texas?
So Texas, there are currently 32 electoral votes. They have 32. So what we see is that states who may, like, for example, we take a state like Texas, which is huge. For example, we take a state like Wyoming and Texas. Okay, so even though Texas is a large Republican base and it should be able to contribute more for their candidate, which would probably be a Republican, it wouldn't count as much and the people's voices wouldn't be heard as much as compared to populations with lower amount because they have less electoral votes. So the plan is that by abolishing, did I mention in my plan text that we're reverting back to popular vote? I don't think I said that. Wow, that was really wrong of me. Okay. We're going to revert back to popular vote. That is what's going to happen. So what we see here is that by abolishing the Electoral College and reverting back to popular vote, each citizen gets a fair voice in the presidential process. And it doesn't matter about which state they live in or how many electoral votes they have based on the state because they happen to live in a state that is densely populated. Each person will get a fair chance and have a fair say in who is going to become a president, and their vote will actually matter. And this is important because we want the voting process to be fair, and we want a president who is actually voted by the people, and not just what the minority says. So, going on to my second contention. contention is that of faithless electors. So the whole point of electors is they're supposed to be voting based on what the people have decided, and they look at what the popular vote is in their own state and vote for the party based on what is most popular. However, there have been cases, according to fairvote.com, since the founding of the Electoral College, there have been more than 157 so-called faithless electors. So faithless electors are basically electors who vote for the other party based on their own wishes and what they want to see, rather than what their people want to see. So, for example, we live in California, so most of the people would probably want a Democratic president, as we are considered a Democratic state. However, a faithless elector would be me voting for the Republican candidate, and this would go against people's wishes. So this is what has been happening in the status quo, and we see that people are not actually having their voices represented correctly because of these faithless electors, and the Electoral College has allowed for this. They've allowed for electors to vote based on what the electors want to see and not what the people want to see. And when the people's voices aren't being brought to light, and so what we basically see, according to the Huffington Post, is one person has a voice for 1,000. And if thousands of voices are being denied just for that one person, that is not right. And that means that there's no fairness in the system, and people will be unhappy. So by changing and abolishing the status quo and reverting back to popular vote, people actually have a fair say in what is going to happen and who they want to see as president, not what their the one electorate wants to see as president. Third contention. So swing states, we're going to tagline as swing states versus safe states. So according to the Huffington Post, in 48 states, a presidential candidate can win 51.01% of the popular vote, yet receive all of the electoral votes. This is the way our system works. This is the way the Electoral College works. So what we see here is that so what this leads to is that we have a differentiation now between safe states and swing states. California, example, is considered a safe state for Democrats. Texas is considered a safe state for Republicans because the Republican Party knows that they just have to get 50.1% of the Electoral College in their state, and then they get all the votes, no matter the 15-second grace period. They get all the votes no matter what the people want to see. Therefore, under the system, we see people they're not getting their voices heard correctly. Democrats' votes in Texas don't matter. Republican votes in California don't matter. And this is what the system has allowed. It has allowed for unequal representation of people. By reverting back to popular vote, people get the same voice as everyone else, and their vote will actually be represented correctly in the way they want to, not what the Electoral College is basing it on. So the plan is going to stop this, revert back to popular vote, impact more fairness for everyone. Yeah. Wow.
So as a brief often roadmap, I'm going to go neg case and cross-apply to app case while I'm doing it. So time starts now. As the first speaker of the negation, I strongly negate today's resolution that the USFG should pass a constitutional amendment to abolish the Electoral College. So I'm going to be arguing for the status quo. Okay, so first contention is that the Electoral College is the only practical solution. So what we see in Electoral College is that within states, the winner takes all. So what we see here is that if we go to a populist system, what we will see is that we will have candidates who will come up with very narrow margins of who's the winner, who's the loser. What this is going to mean is that what we're going to have is we're going to have to count and recount the votes. We saw this in the 2000 election. It happened in Florida. If it weren't for the Electoral College, this would have happened in all the states. It was confined to Florida because Florida was a swing state. But what we see here is, yes?
If Florida was already under the Electoral, Florida follows the same process of Electoral College. How how is this a problem? Like, wait, why did this happen? Like, explain to me how it's going to lead to more problems. Like, how populist vote.
Yeah, okay, I will. So, what we see here is that it's going to happen that when two candidates are running up against each other, there will be a very narrow vote or a narrow margin between votes if it comes to a populist system. So what this means here is that we'll be recounting and counting the votes again because this has happened historically with the 2000 election. This would have happened way more often if we had been in a populist system. And we were lucky that I'll take your question later if I have time, thank you, that it was just confined to Florida because of the electoral college system. So if we were to be keeping on counting this system, votes, we wouldn't be able to put a president in power in time. And what this means is that we won't have an adequate answer in time. This could have very negative impacts if we don't have someone ready to lead our country. And if it's a very narrow margin vote and people are still undecided over who should have won, what this is going to mean is that people are going to be disenfranchised and won't want to cooperate with the new president. The Electoral College fixes this because the electoral vote, it gives a final decision rather than counting again and again, which is what would happen if we were to go under the populist vote. So that's a reason as to why the Electoral College is simply the most practical solution. I'll take your question later by time. Later by time. Okay. So our second contention is how this gives power to small states. So each state gets at least 2 votes, or 3, yeah, okay. Each state gets a minimum of 3 votes. What this means is that candidates, they have to focus their campaign on all states. What this means is that our country is cohesive. We won't have like a president that focuses on one region of the country while totally neglecting another, because what that would mean is sectionalism and states turning against each other, which goes against the ideals of our country as being one United States of America. So this gives power to small states, which is necessary because historically what we saw was that otherwise, before this was decided upon in the Constitution, what we would have was big states like Virginia run over small states like New Jersey. This isn't the case today because we have the Electoral College, because we have venues like this through which small states can get representation. If we were to take this away, this would mean that these states' interests would be totally neglected. So the Electoral College helps the representation of these people in these states. It doesn't harm them. So apply this to their first contention of no equal dispersion. Okay, so third contention, this enhances the minority vote. So ethnic minorities tend to concentrate in the states with the most electoral votes, things like New York, places of great population. What this means is that because of the winner-take-all system, what this means is that minorities, they can make the small difference in who they vote for can decide who wins the vote of the state because of the winner-takes-all system. This means that a group that has historically been oppressed, they now have greater political leverage in the system. Their vote matters more now, and this is important because otherwise, in a populist system, since they are by definition the minority group, they would be oppressed by the majority. They would not be able to have their say. So, yeah. Okay. So then, fourth contention, government by popular vote is not good. Let's say that. Okay, so this is going to cross-apply to their second contention of faithful selectors, in which they say that electorate college members would choose someone who they thought they should vote for rather than what people voted for. Okay, so what this means is that this is a last-ditch attempt to stop a president who might be negatively impactful for the country. So what we see here is that this is a last-ditch effort to prevent people like Donald Trump. Okay, Donald Trump is someone who's riding the waves of populism. He's appealing to people's sense of, like, I'm better than you. He's flattering them. He's making himself look like he's a man of the people. And the scary thing is that people are actually buying into that. If we were to go through a populist vote, what we might just see happen is a Trump presidency. That is a possibility right now. And the thing is, an electoral college, that could, if people are voting for who they believe is the best candidate rather than who other people told them, other than what people in the state told them to vote for, what that means that we could stop the potential negative impacts of a Trump presidency, which include oppression and dehumanization. So, and as to their third contention of swing states, where they claim that winner takes all, and this means things don't matter. I don't really have anything. Okay.
Okay. I'm going to go over net case and odd case. So, as they said that, can I borrow your phone? They said that their contentions would be cross-applied as reputations to our contentions. Basically going to go over their contentions / reputations to the app case, then hit why app case still solves. Okay, and why the net case is not going to solve for constants. That's what. Time starts now as the second speaker of the app team. I strongly favor in today's resolution. The USFG should pass a constitutional amendment to abolish the Electoral College. So the first contention of the NEC team was that the Electoral College is the only practical solution, because in that case, we would see a repeat of 2008 scenario where we still had to count the votes again and again, and the impact of that, there would be no presidency because there would still be counting votes. So at the time in Florida, the system that they had was Electoral College. They still had Electoral College. We still saw this problem. And so what we see here, and the main reason that what happened in Florida in the 2000 election was that of voter fraud and uncounted votes. So what we see here is that we still had Electoral College. The problem still happened. So Electoral College that just still has harms in the status quo, and we still see problems with it. So their whole case about how we're going to have no president or we're going to have to keep counting the votes, it doesn't stand because at the time Florida still had the Electoral College system, and they still have that problem. So going on to the second convention was that a power to solve small states. So they talked about how because of the minimum of 3 votes, each state has an impact of what they want to see in the presidency. However, with this actually, but this isn't true under the Electoral College system, because I'm going to go on to going to explain this why through my third contention of swing states versus safe states. So what we see here is that through the Electoral College, states like California, they're considered safe states because the Electoral College usually majority votes Democrat. Therefore, the Democratic Party has all of the votes. Texas, the Republican Party has all of the votes. So no, the candidates don't concentrate on everyone. They focus on the swing states where the votes could go either way. There is sectionalism happening under the status quo because the Electoral College causes a swing state versus safe state difference. And what happens is that the candidates will end up ignoring the safe states, knowing that they're going to get the vote from there. And they're going to focus on the swing state and appealing just to the swing states just to get their votes. This is why states like New Hampshire, Iowa, this is why they have more important than states like California or Texas. Because everybody knows that all the electoral votes are going to go from California to the Democrats. And all the electoral votes from the Republicans from Texas are going to go to the Republicans, regardless of the Democrats in Texas, which is why a populist vote would ensure that each person, no matter where they live or what each person is going to have a fair say in the system according to populist vote. So I may be a Democrat in Texas, yet my vote will still matter, and it won't be defined by what the majority wants, which might be a Republican candidate. So what we see here is that the harms of sectionalism is because of the status quo, swing state versus safe state. This is a direct cause because of the Electoral College. So going on to the third contention, which is that of enhancing the minority vote and how. So what we see is that the votes of minorities do matter, but under a populist vote, each person will have a fair say. So this is what needs to be addressed. We need each person, no matter who they are, to have a say in the government and what they want to see. And under the populist vote, it wouldn't matter if you're a minority, a majority, or a Republican living in a mostly Democratic state. Your vote would have the same impact as everyone else. Under the Electoral College, it depends on where you live, basically. This is what happens. And it isn't fair to anyone for their vote to be defined by what's going on around them. So then they talked about, so the fourth contention was that the next team, its popular vote is not good. We might have people buy into things like, so Donald Trump, okay. So they talked about how the Electoral College can stop people like Donald Trump. So I'm gonna go back to my faithless voter contention. So here's what happens really. According to what the faithless voter contention is basically trying to say is a person is gonna vote for what they believe in or mainly their party. So it doesn't matter. So in a state like Texas, where most might be Republican, it doesn't really matter. What really matters is the party that they're part of. They're inclined to vote for their party. Most people vote. They're faithless voters. They vote based on parties, and this is what we can see still happening under the Electoral College, which is still happening in the status quo. People vote based on their party. So what we see here is that people like Donald Trump can still gain the presidency under Electoral College, and this last-ditch attempt is not working. And what we need to see is that everyone have an equal vote and equal say, and that way, hopefully, common sense will prevail. Okay, so going on to hit our first contention. So they completely dropped our third contention, the neck team. So what they're basically saying is that they are agreeing to the sectionalism that's happening in the status quo because of the levers that swing states have over states. So this really matters is that candidates are completely ignoring all the other states and basically diverting their campaign just to concentrate on the needs of those few swing states, because that is what inherently decides the presidency and who will become president under the Electoral College. They have conceded sectionalism, and they have conceded unfairness in the status quo. And the impact of this is that people in other states or states that are considered safe, what they want to see in the president or what they would be voting for does not inherently matter, because it's mainly the swing state people who decide the presidency. The people can go either way. So what we see is that in the Electoral College, if we kept Electoral College, all the harms of unfairness and sectionalism would still happen. So, which is why we need a populist vote where each person's vote is the same as everyone else's, and that way we can have a fair a system in which nobody does it anymore. Okay. Yeah.
Today's resolution, the USFG should pass a constitutional amendment to abolish the Electoral College. Okay, so what they say as a response to my first, what she says, okay, whatever.
Doesn't matter.
Okay, that the problem still happened under the Electoral College. However, because each state decides on its own, what we saw was that this problem was confined to just Florida. If it hadn't been for the Electoral College, this would have been a nationwide problem. It would have taken months to decide. This would have had significant impact. It would have caused distrust of the new government if people thought that they got a president they didn't vote for, which is why we need the Electoral College. It's the only practical way to solve the matter of who should be president. It's the only quick, easy answer. So that point still stands. Okay. So their response to our second contention as to power to small states was that this isn't true because of swing states versus safe states and that there's sectionalism in the quo. However, what we see is that if these people are voting, okay, hold on. Okay. If certain states can be dependent to vote for a candidate, it clearly means that the candidate is catering to what that state wants to some extent. So this is not true. Sectionalism is not happening in the status quo. If the Electoral College were to be abolished, what we would see is that sectionalism would increase because what would happen is that candidates would be focusing on California and Texas, which might seem to be a good thing, but what it means is that they're going to totally ignore all the other states because these are the two states with the greatest population. What this means is that our needs are going to be put above the needs of others, and this is uniquely harmful. This isn't a problem for us today, and that's because we have the Electoral College in the status quo. If we were to not have the Electoral College, we would see sectionalism and division like the days as we were starting to build the Constitution when it was the North against the South. We would have states pitted against each other, unable to act cohesively. So, sectionalism is not happening in the status quo. What the Electoral College means is that a candidate has to focus on all states. So, a candidate can't just focus on California and Texas. A candidate has to focus on Iowa, New Hampshire, and that's why swing states are good. They ensure that candidates are focusing their campaign on having a trans-regional impact. So what this means is that we see increased unity, which will increase our ability to function as a country, whereas if we were to abolish the Electoral College, this would go away. So the second contention still stands. We are giving power to small states through the Electoral College. We are avoiding sectionalism. We ensure that all states have representation. We maintain the cohesiveness of the country. And, okay. So their response to our third contention of minority vote was that in popular vote, each person has a fair say no matter who they are or where they live. However, what we need to keep in mind here is that under the electoral vote system, minority vote has a value that will be lost if we switch over to the popular vote system. Okay, so minority needs are often left unconsidered by the government. This can change within the Electoral College system because what we see here is that minority groups are able to put political leverage. So minority groups, such as ethnic groups, they tend to congregate in states that have a large number of electoral votes. For example, California. So what we see here is that these minority votes, they can make, because of the winner-takes-all system of minority vote, what we see is that they can make the difference on who the state goes to. Minority votes matter more in the electoral system rather than compared to what they do in the popular system. And this is necessary because otherwise their needs would go unanswered. They would continue being oppressed, and they're able to put political leverage only under the electoral system. So, yeah. And they claim that the electoral system is unfair because it's determined on where you live and stuff, but as I've already stated in my first contention, this is the only way to decide the results of an election fairly and quickly. So, okay. So, as a response to our fourth contention of being a last-ditch effort against bad precedents, they said that people would vote based on their party anyway. However, they themselves claimed that this is not true, as 157 electors have voted on a party based on what they thought should happen rather than what their people stated. So people aren't just voting. Wait, what? Yeah, so what we see here is that the Electoral College, although they promised to vote for what their constituents vote for, they can actually vote for the other candidate if they believe that that is the best solution. And as they've stated, 157 selectors have voted this way. This could be a last-ditch effort against people like Trump, and this hasn't been a. They claim that people would vote based on their party. Can you clarify that quickly?
Okay, so the way it works is that California is a Democratic state, but like a Republican elector would vote for the Republican candidate, even though.
Okay. This actually doesn't happen often. In most cases, the chosen elector would vote on what the people of the state as a majority wanted. As they've stated, only 157 selectors have voted for the other party from the beginning of the Electoral College. So this, wait. Okay, 15-second grace period. Yeah, people voting for who they believe is the best candidate rather than what their constituents say is beneficial. This is what I've been saying. This is a good thing because what it means is that we can prevent people like Trump from getting into power and yeah. Oh wait, it's nice.
You have another stage.
Okay. So I'll be going over voter issues and the arguments that the Meg is winning on sometimes here now. So strongly negate today's resolution. So I'm just gonna go in and list the arguments that we're winning on. Okay. So so first contention that the Electoral College is the only practical way to do this. So they haven't refuted this. They have. Okay, never mind. So. Okay. So if we were to go to a popular vote system, what we would see is narrow margins and votes would have to be recounted. There would be distrust, and this would lead to a lack of cooperation within the government. So what they stated is that, oh yeah, this problem still happens under the Electoral College in the status quo. So, however, what we need to keep in mind here is that because of the Electoral College, the impact of this is minimized. It happened only in Florida. If this weren't the system, what would happen is that this would happen nationwide. Because of the Electoral College's unique winner-takes-all system, we don't have to spend months counting our election results every single time. This is the only practical way, and to go by a popular system would be madness in terms of practicality. So we're winning on that argument. Okay, so second contention, power to small states, representation, and unity. So they claim that because of swing states versus safe states, that there's already sectionalism. However, what we see is that if certain areas are voting for a certain candidate, it means that candidate is catering to their views. Now, what we need to keep in mind here is that under the electoral system, a candidate can't just focus on one area. Like, it's true, Democrats, they do have a majority in California. However, they can't limit their campaign to just one state. They need to focus on Iowa and New Hampshire and these other states that otherwise would have gone unnoticed in the election because of the electoral vote. So this is reducing sectionalism, whereas if we were to get rid of this, what we would see is that Democrats would be flocking to California and focusing their campaign only there because we have more people, whereas other states would go ignored, and same for Republicans in Texas, and we would see increased sectionalism happening, and this is bad because it decreases our ability to function as a country. So sectionalism is not happening in the status quo. It would only increase if we were to go by popular vote. Okay. So then our third contention of minority vote. So minority vote having value is necessary because otherwise they wouldn't have any political leverage. Their needs would go unaddressed. They would continue being oppressed. Now, the Electoral College uniquely enables them to have a more significant voice in their country because of the winner-takes-all system and the fact that they tend to be in states with large electoral votes. Now, what we would do in a populist system was that each person would have the same vote. So what this means is that if you're white, you have the same vote. If you're black, you have the same vote. Now, this may seem like a good thing, but what it means is that communities like the LGBTQ community, like blacks, like people of like ethnic minorities, they would otherwise not be represented in. They would otherwise not be represented in the government because their votes would be drowned out by the majority if we were to go by a populist system. However, the Electoral College means that this is not happening. The minority vote is incredibly important under the electoral vote, and this would not happen under the populist vote. So, and then we're winning on our fourth contention of a fail-safe against bad government. So they claim that people are going to be voting based on their party. Like a Republican elector from California would vote for a Republican candidate. However, this is a good thing. Electors voting for who they believe would be the best candidate. We would like to point out that this happens infrequently, but when it does happen, it means that electors are voting for who they think is the best candidate. This has the impact of stopping someone like Donald Trump from becoming president. So, yeah.
Great. Okay. So. Okay. So I'm gonna actually go through some of the neg case, try to hit what I can, but then mainly strengthen the app case and the just voter issues. Term starts now, I'm going to get right into it. So their first voter issue that they have won the first contention, which is basically that electoral college is the only practical solution. I quote this neg team when they said, the quick and easy solution, and if we went to populist system, this would lead to distrust. There's already distrust happening in the status quo because status quo, the electoral college, is inherently unfair because it depends on where you live. Where you live depends basically amounts to how much your vote is worth. We have seen so no equal distribution. Some states do not have enough electoral. So when I brought up the case of Texas, they have one person for 715,000 people, whereas Wyoming has one person for 177,000 people. What we see is that there's inherently unfairness in the status quo where people aren't being represented fairly and equally. So there's already distrust, and the populist vote, though it may not be the quick and easy answer as the neg would like the Electoral College, it is the solution we must take if we want people to regain trust in the system. People obviously don't care. Obviously realize that their votes may not matter because we already have this classification of swing state versus safe state. So me, if I was a Californian citizen who could vote, my vote wouldn't even matter compared to someone in New Hampshire because they're a so-called swing state, where all the candidates focus their campaigns on those few swing states, knowing that they wouldn't have to focus on safe states because they would get the votes from there anyway. So there is distrust happening because of the Electoral College, and though the popular vote may not be the quick and easy solution, it is a solution we must take in order to ensure fairness. So going on to their second contention, which is that of power to small states, and they talked about how the Electoral College is inherently good because if there was a popular vote, the candidates would only focus on states like California and Texas. Okay, here's the truth. But now they're not focusing on these states at all. They're catering only to the needs of swing states because they are the ones who inherently decide the election. And they have conceded this point. in their first speech they didn't even refute it, and though they tried to refute it in their second speech, they apparently conceded the fact that there is because of the classification of swing state versus safe state. This leads to more sectionalism, and it leads to people in safe state thinking their voice doesn't matter, whereas in New Hampshire vote, Iowan vote would matter way more because their vote inherently decides what the electoral college is going to represent, which leads to how many votes, who gets all the votes per that state. So, yeah, well, we have seen the complete opposite in the electoral college. In popular vote, we do not know for a fact if it only catered to the big states, but we can assure that people would have more of a say and more of a voice. And this is what we're inherently hoping for under popular vote, where everyone has an equal say in what is good, in who they want to see as president, not based on what you have in the electorate. Okay, so going on to the ad case now, just want to hit the first contention of no equal dispersion. They actually really didn't have any refutation to this, so I'm just going to hit this one. So what we see here is that under electoral college, though there is a minimum of 3 electorates per state, what we see is that states like Texas, though they may have 25 compared to Wyoming's like 4, the electorates have way more power in their states because they're representing huge sums. So this could lead to my faithless voter contention, where we have one person deciding the needs of 1,000. And what we can see is that 1,000 people may not want a candidate, but if that one person wants a candidate, that is what is going to show on the election. That is what inherently is going to decide the election. What does that one person want? This is what we are allowing in the status quo. We are allowing for the one person to address the needs of the many. So what we are seeing is that there is no fairness. People don't have the voice in their government, and in fact, it leads to government distress. So with popular vote, every person's vote is considered equally. There is no electoral college, no electorate who can decide the votes of the thousands. No, every person votes individually on their own for who they want to see out of the 2 final candidates from either party. Democrats versus Republicans. So, yeah. You can. So I have 50 second grace, but you can still vote for us on the swing state versus safe state, which they did drop in their first speech, and we have already talked about in our reputations. And you can, yeah. Okay. I really need to work on time management. I have learned that.
You both? Yeah. Right. Feedback from y'all? It's sleeping half the time and all the other half.
I actually just had on my phone like 5 seconds ago, and then you turned around. So, like, essentially what you guys are doing, we're arguing a lot of the same benefits. So, like, you kept saying, like, so there was stuff about how, like, minorities